What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Full Press Hockey Weekly Show. I'm your host, Jim Berenger, the voice of Full Press Hockey. Sending out well wishes to our buddy Chris Wassel, who is unfortunately under the weather today, can't be here with us. But look who's on. Ian, our producer, is here live in living color.
It's true. I do exist. I am just not a figment of people's imaginations.
Yeah, you can catch him every day outside of Wednesday press radio show every morning, right?
Yeah, well, actually, this week we're actually going to be on Wednesday, so I appreciate the plug. Yeah, of course, FPC Radio Live. Of course, I am behind the scenes on the Eye Test for Two, our Hall of Fame NFL-centric podcast, and of course, I have the pleasure of being the one in control with the dump button when Chris and Jim are usually on here each and every Wednesday, Tuesday, sometimes Monday, and sometimes Friday.
Yeah, whenever we're around, we do it. Whenever we're free, we get to do it. Whenever the schedule's light, we'll do it. But we're back this time. A lot of stuff to talk to you about. Try to get through it as quickly as possible. We know we got Game 7 tonight, Dallas and Seattle. Winner will play the Vegas Golden Knights in the Western Conference Final because, well, they beat the Edmonton Oilers in 6 games in the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. That game happened Sunday night. There it is.
Jack Eichel bobble. Well, it's not a bobblehead, but it's a statue that I got during the preseason matchup that I went to in Vegas. So
there you go. Well,
Bruce Cassidy.
Hey, go Bruce Cassidy is right. I mean, look what Bruce Cassidy's doing with the Vegas Golden Knights to the Western Conference Final. By the way, it's the 4th time the Golden Knights have been to the Western Conference Final. They've only been in existence for 6 seasons, folks. That's a pretty good job. But good on Bruce Cassidy for getting this team to the Western Conference Final because, you know, at the beginning of the year when this firing happened in Boston, a lot of people were not happy with it in Boston. Even though Jim Montgomery's done a good job, I think Bruce Cassidy's getting the last laugh right now.
Well, I think everyone who saw the firing in Boston realized this isn't Bruce Cassidy is a bad coach. This is just maybe it's time to move on and move in a different direction. And I think it was win-win for both parties. Obviously, now Bruce lands in a pretty darn good spot in Las Vegas, and he has his team 4 wins away from going to the Cup Finals. So I can't help but be a little happy for Bruce, although I am still in that recovery stage of the Bruins' first-round loss. So that's why I couldn't put the jersey on today. I didn't feel good. I mean, my energy's up a little bit seeing the Maple Leafs out, but to be honest with you, I'm still a little bummed out. So I will root for Bruce. I will, but just not so loudly.
Yeah, that's true. Probably a little Bruins fans all over in Boston, Mass, may be rooting for Bruce Cassidy to lift the Stanley Cup this year. I mean, Vegas got a good squad. Their depth scoring showed up. Their goaltending showed up. Their power play showed up, and, you know, that's been an issue for them. But the one thing that was surprising to me was, well, maybe it shouldn't be surprising, as I wrote on FullPressHockey.com, that, looky, the Oilers' defense and goaltending strikes again. And it wasn't good, and it's a weakness that they need to address.
Yeah, I mean, no matter how many goals you score, we see it each and every night. Like, 4 goals doesn't guarantee you a victory in this sport anymore. It used to. Four goals used to guarantee quite a bit in the NHL 15, 20 years ago. But we're seeing now that, yeah, it's great when you have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl putting up 50 goals each, or in Connor McDavid's case, over 60 goals. But when you're pretty much giving up just as many, you know what I mean? Like, it's as someone who grew up and was a goaltender, I like to think that goalies really control the whole game as much as it's a team sport, just like the quarterback position in football. It's a fascinating sport because as good as you are offensively, like the Oilers, as great as you are, like the Bruins were offensively and defensively, they lapsed and they didn't get great goaltending. Guess what? They lost. So the key to success is goaltending. Your Devils, inconsistent at best. And that's a problem that's why they're not here today. You look over in Florida, and trust me, I hate to give him credit because I am in first in line when it comes to bashing Sergei Bobrovsky, but he's really been solid since that Bruins series. And for a number of reasons, Florida isn't the position they are, but they're getting more consistent goaltending. So yeah, from Edmonton's point of view, I mean, you got to get that fixed. You cannot waste. Like, how much longer do you think Connor McDavid is going to want to put up with this?
I mean, considering his comments and Leon Draisaitl's comments after the game yesterday, they were not happy. The fact that they've wasted another season losing in the playoffs, and you could see it. They took responsibility for it. They know they didn't produce as much as they should. I mean, McDavid, again, in elimination game, scores another goal. Leon Draisaitl went cold after game 2 of this series. But the Edmonton Oilers relied on their power play a little too much. I know you had the best regular season power play and the best postseason power play. But guess what? It's still not going to win you games when your goaltender can't stop the puck and your defensemen on the team are puck watching. Nothing against Darnell Nurse. He's a physical. He's got the tools, but his hockey IQ isn't there. And when Cody Ceci's in your top 6 for defensemen, that's a problem. Look, the Oilers were great down the stretch. They were one of the best teams down the stretch of the regular season. So was Vegas. They lost to the Pacific Division champions. Edmonton was 2 points behind Vegas. It's not like they lost to Florida. No disrespect to Florida. Florida's a really good team. They got hot at the right time. But Florida made the change after Game 4 in the Bruins series to go to Sergei Bobrovsky, their $10 million man. Edmonton signed Jack Campbell 5 times 5. There's a reason he's getting paid $5 million. Yes, you can blame Stuart Skinner, but Stuart Skinner's really, this wasn't his team. Yes, he's up for Calder Trophy for Rookie of the Year, but Jack Campbell saved the season for the Edmonton Oilers in round 1 against the LA Kings, and he needed to be playing in this series against Vegas at some point. And I think you saw it in the first goal, you saw in some of the other goals, and then during the series, Stuart Skinner gave up bad goals. And I think Jack Campbell needed to start Game 5 and Game 6 for the Edmonton Oilers to give them a chance. Because we saw on the other side, yeah, Laurent Brossoit goes down, but Aiden Hill made the save when he needed to. Yeah, he gave up some leaky goals, but Sean Burks is a good goalie coach, and there's a good coaching staff over there. When their bottom 6 and their depth scoring is coming to play, like the Marcia Sills, like the Riley Smiths, like the old misfits that the Golden Knights have, and I think they have a more complete team now than they did when they went to the Stanley Cup final in 2018. And Edmonton's top guys are not showing up outside of Connor and Leon. Well, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, 1 goal. I think Evander Kane, 2 goals. Yamamoto, 1 goal. I mean, the guys that they need to score, especially Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, who had a 100-point season, I mean, where were these guys? Non-existent, and they needed to score.
And look, that's a problem, first of all, when you rely so much on your power play, as great as it is, because relative to the amount of time you're on the ice, it's a small percentage of ice time. And when your goaltending cannot, I mean, they can't keep up with that. That's a problem, because then you get bounced every year like this. And look, long gone are the days where 90% of the teams run a goalie through every game of the playoffs, sink or swim, aside from maybe a late game release, so to speak, if they give up too many goals. But, you're seeing more and more teams handle the split. And I think much like a pitcher in baseball, timing is starting to play a factor, because it's not so much like, oh no, he's our guy, he makes X amount of dollars, he needs to be in. It's like, yeah, we get that this young guy may be our future, but he's struggling right now. And if we're too stubborn enough, we're going to be going home early. So, go back to the Bruins series, and we talked about this before. They waited too long to make the goalie change. And it's not a negative on Linus Ullmark, but you get to the point where you're forced to make a change in Game 7, and you're pretty much hanging Jeremy Swayman out to dry. And I didn't think he had a good game. So as a coach, you have to be better at managing these goaltenders, much like you do with pitchers in baseball.
Yeah, I mean, agreed. I mean, look, pitchers in baseball, pitching still wins championships. Quarterback position, you need a good quarterback. The Yankees are finding that out. You still need good pitching to win. in Major League Baseball, you still need it, and you need good goaltending. And look, even the Devils with what happened in their elimination, Vitek Vanacek was not great in Game 3, even though they won. That's when you need to go to Akira Schmid in Game 4 and just ride him because he's played well. Philip Grubauer is the only guy left in the playoffs that has not gotten pulled. He's played every game. Ottinger's gotten pulled. He's been taken out and pretty much in a relief effort. But, look, you need to get the timely save. You need to get good goaltending. You need to play good defense. And if the Oilers want to run it back with this team, which I think they can, they need to get a number one goaltender. Now, everybody's going to go after Connor Hellebuck if he is available. But they need somebody to make a save, or you're going to have to rely on Jack Campbell. And the problem is if you don't trust him and you didn't trust him and have confidence in him to put him in the Vegas series, well, do you get rid of him? Well, he's got a 10-team no-trade list. So they're up in the air with something, but they have to do something if they want to run it back. But I think McDavid and Draisaitl on what they have there. And look, I'm not going to put Evander Kane on that list of guys that didn't show up. Yeah, he only had 2 goals. Don't forget, he had his wrist surgery, had a laceration. He's coming back. I think if he was healthy and he doesn't have that injury, I think it's a different story. But again, you need guys to show up for the Edmonton Oilers, and that's why they're going home. And they don't want to. And I think in their post game, we saw it. Connor and Leon said it. They don't want to feel this kind of pain anymore. It's like McKinnon. He's like, you know what? I haven't won squat in this league. Let's see if the Oilers can actually put their money where their mouth is and go have another successful year next year.
I'll tell you what, if they run it back like they did this season, they're going to be right back in the same spot they were right now.
Yeah, I agree. They need
the second round.
They need better defense. They need better goaltending, and it was exposed in both of these series.
Yeah, and look, sometimes, like you said, sometimes it's hard to predict because it is all about timing. Because look, the Bruins had the best offense and the best defense. Guess what happened? Their defense was atrocious for much of that series in the first round against Florida. So sometimes you can just throw that out the window. It's sometimes more about timing, playing the right way at the right time. Again, look at what Florida is doing right now. But the problem with Edmonton is, when were they ever stout defensively this season? When did they ever have a good stretch defensively or in net where you're like, you know what? I actually kind of feel confident in them. Not just like a game or two here where they have a shutout or, they play pretty well. I'm talking like a prolonged stretch where you're like, you know what? Maybe this team has turned the corner. And I can guarantee you they didn't this year. And if they go back and try to do the same thing over and over again, and hello, Facebook. Someone's checking us out over there.
Hey, all right.
Hello, Ignacio. I don't know who that. Part of it's cut off, so I'm trying to see the whole name and picture. But
the only time you would look at it is probably down the stretch when they actually were playing well, and defensively. But then maybe their offense and everything was clicking so well that it was covering up deficiencies, and you have to look at that.
It's a lot easier playing from ahead.
It is. It really is. And you know what? The Oilers. And that was the big problem in that series with Vegas and even LA. When they got the lead, they couldn't hold the lead. They would strike quickly, get the first goal, but 50 seconds later, that's the next shift, and Vegas ties the game. You can't do that.
I went to the bathroom when Vegas was up or down 2-1 the other night. I came back and they were down 4-2. I kid you not.
Yeah.
I thought there was something that happened. Did I screw up? And no, as it turns out, they scored 3 goals in a minute 29?
Yeah, it can't happen. Can't happen. Like, that's just poor defensive hockey. And look, you're not going to win. And, again, nothing against the player, but you're not going to win with Cody Ceci as one of your top 6 defensemen. I'm sorry, you're just not. And Darnell Nurse has to get a better hockey IQ because, again, go find the goals. I can pinpoint him. He's out of position. He's puck watching. He's looking at guys. He should be where he was. And you saw in some of the goals yesterday, Draisaitl goes for a spin. Ryan McLeod on the first one goes for a spin. These guys are out to lunch, and that's not a good thing, especially in an elimination game. And, Edmonton's not the only Canadian team that has problems. The Toronto Maple Leafs are out in 5 games at the hands of the Florida Panthers. Now, it was a 5-game series. Every game was probably competitive. Every game was competitive. Probably the most fun series to watch, even though it went 5 games. But there were no blowouts in that series. But the Florida Panthers are going to the Eastern Conference Final for the first time since 1996. And again, the core of that team did not show up. It went from the first round. It's like, okay, the star players showed up. They went through adversity, came back, won overtime games on the road. That's what you need to make a deep playoff run. But then the script went back to the first rounds of years gone by.
Yeah, and look, this was something, all of us Maple Leafs detractors, and there's a lot of us out there, we're kind of chuckling. It's like, wow, they're celebrating so hard after that first round playoff win. It's almost like they forget there's still hockey to be played. And well, I think the Leafs did forget that there was still hockey to be played. And boy, did those words of "we want Florida" come back to bite them very quickly. And look, we look at. We look at this team, we look at the Maple Leafs, and I tweeted it last night. There's a few comparisons across sports, and I tweeted the Spider-Man meme with them and the 76ers, because it's kind of the same thing. The 76ers haven't been to the conference finals since 2000, 2001. They're constantly this talent-laden team with all this potential, and they have this MVP and Joel Embiid, and the Maple Leafs have Austin Matthews, and it's like, these guys have these great seasons, and they do squat. Nothing in the postseason, nothing that matters. And like you said, yeah, oh, great, you had a great first round. Honestly, it doesn't matter at this point because you had an equally as bad second round. So where do the Leafs go from here?
They got to break it up. I mean, you can't run it back again in Toronto. You cannot run it back. After the first two, okay, fine. You want to run it back after that Washington loss, that's fine. That was their first year in the playoffs in a while. They took them to 6 games. The Bruins won. Okay, I can give you that one. After that, there was a point that it came to where you can't run it back anymore, and you can't run it back. And look, Kyle Dubas did everything in his power this year at the trade deadline. We've documented it. The guys he brought in, Ryan O'Reilly's, the Acharis, the Luke Shens, the list goes on of guys. He made this team better. You could see it today in his availability. He got emotional talking about it. He wants to be with the Maple Leafs. He wants to see it through. Marner said he wants to come back. Matthews says he wants to come back. Nylander says, but again, they have to make hard decisions, and Dubas is finally admitting he may not can run this back anymore. He's gotten as far as he could, and we've seen championship teams make the tough decision when it comes to moving players. You could look at the Nylander, you look at Marner. I mean, they're guys that they're probably going to get moved. They have to, because you can't have $40 million or more tied up in
Austin
five
Matthews
guys.
wants another contract.
Yeah, and Austin Matthews can start negotiating on July 1st. So, unfortunately, somebody's going to be the odd man out. And is it Matthews? Is it Marner? Is it Nylander? I don't know. But Nylander had a great second round. I mean, sometimes the puck doesn't go in the net, but I thought he was the best Maple Leaf for them, along with Morgan Riley. Joseph Wall played great in Game 5 and in his relief efforts in Games 3 and 4. Defensively, they had breakdowns. Again, making mistakes in the first round didn't cost them. It cost them in the second round because in Game 2, you're up and you give up 2 goals in like a minute because guys can't get the puck deep. So there's got to be a change of philosophy. We saw in Edmonton guys taking responsibility. Toronto, not so much. It's like it's robotic answers. It's where's the responsibility? Where's the attitude? Where's the fact that we're so mad about losing in the playoffs constantly that we want to come back and finish the job like we see in so many other sports?
Well, and it's like it almost feels like they're kind of taking on the mantra of a lot of the fan base, and it's like it's always someone else's fault. And look, I mean, a lot of fan bases are like that. They're going to blame officials, but there's always this kind of like pass the buck mentality, and maybe they bought into the hype too. Maybe they bought into this being finally the year for the Maple Leafs. I mean, they got past the first round. They knocked out the 3-time reigning Eastern Conference champion. But the reality of it is it's not the same as the 3 years prior with Tampa Bay. They're not the same team. And they ran into, what is arguably or clearly looking like perhaps the best team in the East. I mean, who knows? We'll see. We'll find out between them and Carolina. But, it was a very rude awakening for, maybe front running team is not the technical right word for it, but the idea behind it being they're a regular season team.
Yeah.
They're just a team that will convince you every regular season that this year it's different. This year they're finally going to get over the hump, but it's the same old thing, because when it comes down to it, when you have to play a team 4, 5, 6, 7 times in a 2-week span, your flaws become very apparent, and Florida exploited them right from the get-go, and you could see right away that the Leafs took, in a lot of cases, kind of took themselves out with mental errors, and Florida made them pay.
Every time they made him pay. Every time.
Much like the Bruins. So Maple Leafs fans put the pitchforks down. I could literally replace Maple Leafs with Bruins, and everything I just said would apply. So
I 100% agree with that. I mean, look, you think about it. I mean, look, the Bruins made mistakes that ended up in the back of their net. The Maple Leafs constantly made mistakes that ended up in the back of their net. And, again, the top guys, Marner had 2 goals in the series, but he had a goal in game 4, but he didn't show up in the elimination game. Again, Nylander was there. Matthews hit how many posts in that series? But again, give credit to Sergei Bobrovsky. When he's playing like this, he's one of the best goalies in the world. He's won 2 Vezina trophies for a reason. I mean, the guy stays on after morning skates, after practice. He's playing well. And yeah, did I figure Florida was going to win the first game? Yeah, because it was right away after the Bruins win in game 7. But I thought Toronto was going to bounce back like they did against Tampa, and they didn't. They went away. And they have to find a soul, and they got to realize that they're going to even have to work even harder to win. And it's not just about the first round. It's about going deep in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They say all the right things after they won the first round, but it's like they kind of took a step
maybe
back.
it was just saying the right
Right.
things.
They didn't do
and
the
not
right
doing
thing.
it.
Yeah, exactly. So Toronto has a lot of answers. Again, with their general manager, is Kyle Dubas going to come back? Is Sheldon Keefe going to come back? Are they going to run? Who's obviously Michael Bunting's a free agent. Ron O'Reilly's a free agent. Do these guys want to come back? Can they bring them back? Again, the salary cap's going to play a factor in what they do. So Toronto has questions. Edmonton has questions, but Vegas is waiting for Dallas, Seattle winner, and in the East we have the Eastern Conference Final, which is Carolina and Florida, and I think this is going to be a good matchup because Florida's playing a team in Carolina that's similar to what Tampa was last year. They play a defensive system through the neutral zone. That's the thing that slowed up Florida last year, but I think Florida mentally is stronger going through that stretch they went through from January through now.
Yeah, and look, I mean, we talk about how good they are at capitalizing on mistakes. I mean, that's the one thing that was so frustrating about watching them play the Bruins was a 90% success rate when it comes to capitalizing on a mistake. If the Bruins made a mistake in their defensive zone, you could damn sure bet that Matthew Tkachuk was going to get a stick on the puck and it was going to be in the back of the net eventually. And that's something that Florida has been doing remarkably well. Now, obviously they were the President's Trophy winner last year. I thought that they were less talented, so to speak, losing the players that they lost and everything like that. But clearly they were the most mentally tough team going through these playoffs. And look, as much as I don't like either team from a fan perspective. So when I say as much as I like Carolina, I don't like them. I hate Carolina. But as much as I like their game, I just think Florida is they're just playing at such a I don't know, everything's just kind of flowing like a pendulum together, like everything's just like offense, defense, and
Yeah.
sometimes like these teams just go on a run. So my first gut instinct is, yeah, this is probably going to go 5 or 6. But I like Florida, maybe even to jump out to a 3-1 lead and close it off in 6.
Well, I'm going to be interested because Carolina is such a patient team too.
Yeah.
And they can capitalize on mistakes like we saw in the Jersey series. And when they want to, they could bang out 4 goals in a quick stretch of time. So, look, if Florida's not patient with the puck like they have been, they could get frustrated, and Carolina's going to make them pay. And I think Carolina has some of the best. Their D-core is probably the best of the remaining. And look, Frederick Anderson's played well too. Again, are we going to see the Carolina from round 2, or are we going to see the Carolina offense from round 1 because they went up against good defense and good goaltending? Mm-hmm. Because everybody's talking about the narrative is they can't score without Svechnikov, Teravainen, and all these guys. Well, they can score, and Florida has to be careful because Carolina is a very, very difficult place to play in the playoffs. The place is loud. If they score first, they play their system to perfection. And Rob Brendan-Moore, like Paul Maurice, are great coaches. So I'm so glad, look,
one coach the other at one point.
Exactly. As much as I don't like the fact that the Devils are not there, they're a young team. Carolina's the better team. They won the Metro. So it makes sense. Florida better be careful because Carolina, like I said, offensively, they could put a stretch together when they want to. They could pin you in the zone and bang, bang, bang. There's 4 goals in 5 minutes and 20 seconds in the back of the net. And the game can go from 0-0 to 3-0 real quick. And Carolina is so good shorthanded. Their power play is good. So the only thing that could really stop Florida is time off because I want to see when this series gets going because it's already Monday. They haven't announced anything yet. So how long is the break for the Florida Panthers to stop their momentum?
I'll tell you what, and I agree with you. I think this is going to be a fun series to watch. But the NHL hates this. I mean, think about it. From a ratings and trying to grab the national spotlight attention, this may be the worst play out of the potential Final Four that they could have possibly gotten. And I'm not saying that as an insult to the teams because I agree with you. I think it's going to be a fun series. I think it's going to be a very physical series. I actually don't think it's going to be that high scoring of a series. I think we're going to get some throwback early 2000s hockey between these two teams. And I think from a pure hockey standpoint, it's going to be fun to watch. I just think, unfortunately, for the league, and we know how a lot of things are tied into how successful their ratings are and everything like that. Unfortunately for the league, they're getting, they better hope Vegas gets into the Cup final. That's all I can say.
I mean,
hope Vegas gets in because at least they can capitalize on that market. But as great as Florida and as great as Carolina is market-wise, and I'm not meaning size of market, I just mean it's Vegas. I mean, you can market anything to anyone in Las Vegas, and I think they can do that with this Cup final and at least make it appealing to the broader fan. But man, and they were definitely. I mean, look, if you're hoping for a Maple Leaf Stanley Cup final appearance, then guess what? Joke's on you. But I know they were hoping for something else, like obviously a Bruins or a Rangers or even the Devils who have that metro area market too. Yeah. So it's from that standpoint, I know the NHL is disappointed, but I think we're going to get, like you said, a very, very good competitive series between these two. But I think it's going to be low scoring.
Yeah, I think it's going to be low scoring as well. And I mean, there is a narrative about Florida's first trip to the conference final since 1996. So I guess, if you could play on that a little bit and market that a little bit too, saying, Carolina hasn't been there.
But how many young fans or casual fans remember?
They don't know. They don't remember that. But I will say,
scoring that goal in the final.
But I will say, if Seattle gets to the Western Conference final, that's a good matchup for the league because of the two highest markets right now out there, that the expansion team, let's see. And then you also have the narrative, if Seattle gets there, you have 3 teams left that's never won a Stanley Cup.
That's true.
Again, but it's all how you market it. It's all how you schedule it. Again, Connor McDavid playing at 10 o'clock on a Sunday night on ESPN is not good for your league.
Yeah.
It's just not. I know everybody, you can hear about stop complaining about this. Yes, but you have ESPN too. But does anybody really care about a regular season game between the Cardinals and the Red Sox in May?
Yeah. What was that nonsense having, they're down, the Red Sox are down 9-1 or whatever it is. And then they're split screening the hockey game. It's I mean, you're going out of your way to demarket.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. And when they had hockey before they lost it, they used ESPN2 all the time.
Yeah.
They counter programmed all the time. TNT does it with their hockey and their shows. So it's not like they, you can't counter program. I think people would have loved to seen Connor McDavid play at 8 o'clock on a Sunday night on the East Coast. But again, like Snoop Dogg said, they don't really market him but he is the new face of this league.
And he could, and that's the thing. It's like I sit here and say, oh, the NHL is kicking themselves because they might get this bad matchup, or from a rating standpoint, not a bad physical matchup, but like they're as much to blame for being in this situation, because like if they did their job right, it wouldn't matter necessarily who was in the Final Four. I mean, look at the NFL, and look, it's not fair to compare any sport to the NFL. They are an absolute machine of just nonsense. I mean, they can literally do no wrong. I mean, they could go out and commit like the most grotesque crimes. Like every head NFL top executive can go out and like on camera commit like grotesque crimes, and nothing's going to change about their bottom line. If anything, it'll go up higher. So like the NFL is kind of a bad comparison, but at the same time, they can get you hyped about any market in any game. Yeah, of course, they're not all the same, but at the same time, like I feel like the NHL has no hope to get people excited about the Panthers and the Hurricanes, in the Eastern Conference Final.
Yeah, and it's a shame because there's a lot of good players in those games, and a lot of former player. Keith Kachuk's son's in that game, Matthew Kachuk, and he's an agitator and he's a great player. Bobrovsky, all these guys are there. Brenda Moore, Paul Maurice going up against his old. But again, it's when you play the game. When is the game on? Like we already know in the Western Conference Final for the NBA is, but we don't even have the schedule for the Eastern Conference Final yet. Like it's ridiculous. And the matchup was set Friday. Like you should know that already. And again, you don't know building availabilities because the Heat's there and the Panthers are there at the same time. You don't want to play the game on the same day. I get that. But still, you should have a rough idea when the games are. And, it's just, again, just goes back to the format of the playoffs is really not the greatest, because you would not be in this situation if you had the true 1-8 format. Good teams would not be going home this early. I mean, some would, but again, in any format, whether it's 1-8 or this one, somebody's going home early. But again, you got to do a better job of putting your star players. Again, even tonight, 8 o'clock, that's fine for guys on the East Coast. I get it. You have to do that. But, Connor McDavid at 10 p.m. on a Sunday when there was nothing else on, like, that has to be better.
Like, I'm watching that game with, like, toothpicks in my eyes because I can't keep
Right, exactly. Exactly. If that game's on at 8 o'clock, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still probably watching with toothpicks in my eyes because I go to bed early now. But yeah, no, I'm with you. It's like it's like who's planning for 10 o'clock at night? You're never watching a game in the NFL at 10 o'clock at night. I don't care if it's in Seattle or if it's in London. You know what I mean? You're not watching these games so late at night. So yeah, the NHL's got to figure it out, and I'm right there with you. I'm 100% behind going back to the 1-8 format because. I prefer it.
Yeah.
It just, I think it's just the way it should be. And I think the way it should go on from here on out. And I think maybe it will lead to maybe some better planning on part of the NHL. You never know. Maybe you get some better matchups too. But again, I don't want to insult Florida because they're clearly, I mean, they earned that victory over the Bruins. They earned that victory over the Maple Leafs. And those two teams were quote unquote better than them in the regular season. So.
Yeah, anything can happen in the Stanley Cup playoffs. We've seen it this year. It's been one of the wilder, wacky Stanley Cup playoffs. No really chalk outside of Vegas, and Carolina. That's about it. And we're going to see what happens in Game 7 tonight between Dallas and Seattle. And hope for a good game because that series has been crazy too because whoever scores first usually just runs away with the game. So hopefully Game 7 delivers because it's the best word in sports, Game 7, and everybody loves it. So hopefully we get a good one. It's do or die for Seattle and Dallas on ESPN tonight. So, but thank you everybody for tuning in here for the Full Press Hockey Weekly Show. I've been Jim Berenger, your host, voice of Full Press Hockey. Get this Full Press NHL on Twitter, on YouTube, Full Press Coverage, Facebook, Full Press NHL, Full Press Coverage as well. And check us out, fullpresshockey.com. Get the audio, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Ian, thanks.